Oh, yes, I have. Yes, I have.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call the county board meeting to order. John, if you could call the roll, please.
Atkins.
Here.
Crawford.
Here.
Deppert.
Here.
Mark Goddard. Sam Goddard.
Here.
Graff.
Here.
Hageman. Hall. Harris. Josting. Crable. Longfellow. Mennel. Mingus. Nelms. Paget. Strail. Rich Simpson. Schneider. Sin. Smith. Chairman Zimmer.
We have a quorum. We'll do business. If we could rise for the invocation and pledge, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for being such a gracious God, so patient with us. Thank you for the opportunity to meet together in this free country where we can debate these issues, come together. And, I pray that our conversation and our debate will glorify you and honor the citizens of Tazewell County. You instituted government, and we want to do the things that honor you. Thanks for our citizens that have come out this evening. I pray that they're able to communicate what they'd like to do. I thank you for our employees, for our first line law enforcement and health department, and the fact that they put their lives on the line. Just a brief moments with Memorial Day and all those who have died in order for us to be able to meet like this. We just thank you, Father, for the sacrifice that they've made. I pray that throughout this evening, I know we have some issues here, that we can do this in a spirit of humility and a spirit of honoring you in all that we say and do. We love you, Lord, and we pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, just as a heads up, we're probably going to go into executive session twice this evening. The second time, it'll be fairly, there'll be some action, but pretty non-controversial. But we'll move forward. At this time, communications from members of the public and county employees. I have the submissions here, and I'm going to go by topic. So our first speaker will be Michael Reagan. Wants to speak about VAC. And if you could just say your name and what community you live in.
So my name's Michael Reagan. I'm a disabled veteran, live in Tazewell County, Sunny Lane. I came to one of these before, talked to you a little bit about the Veterans Assistance Commission, about what they're supposed to be doing versus what they're doing for us in Tazewell County. I'm going to make this real quick. I have here a copy of what's put out from the Veterans Assistance Commission about what they've done. I've got a copy of Peoria counties and what they've done. So one of the things I want to bring up in one of the papers in Peoria, the Veterans Assistance Commission, Peoria County, was actually quoted as saying that Woodford County made up 5% of Peoria's business, but Tazewell veterans have been more than 5 times as frequent, 28% in 2018, 27% in 2019, 25% in 2020, with comparable numbers in recent years. The Veterans Assistance Commission, Peoria County, does a lot to help veterans. My group is called 22 VA, 22 Veteran Artists. My group is called 22 Veteran Artists because 22 veterans a day commit suicide. That's some ridiculous numbers. That was 22 college kids, we'd be having a real problem, and people would call it an epidemic or something. It's 22 veterans seems to be looked over. One of the reasons why that happens is because of hopelessness. We're not getting the help that we need. When I go to the Veterans Assistance Commission here, I can't even get somebody to print me out a copy of my property tax report to take it across the street to the courthouse. But Peoria County does things like this. 75 intents to files 107 power of attorneys, 77 finalies. We've got Tazewell County, on the other hand, talks about how many veterans they helped out at a food pantry. Pantry report, 76 vets and 153 siblings. There's 19 food pantries in Beacon. The veterans need more than just a food pantry. Anybody that wants to get a hold of me, John Ackerman knows how to get a hold of me. I did try to help out the Veterans Assistance Commission here in Tazewell County. I am a former Veterans Service Officer. I've done hundreds of claims. So far this month, I've done 6 1/10 of files, and I'm not even doing them for money. I'm doing it to try to get veterans help. Many of these veterans are in Tazewell County, and I have to send them to Peoria County to get help, and that's sick. The money that's given out by the Veterans Assistance Commission is your taxpayer dollars. A lot of these veterans could be receiving benefits. That's what I used to do for Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs. That's what should be done as of January. That's what's supposed to be done at every Veterans Assistance Commission. Every county office has to do claims now. Woodford County's brought in $5 million last year in federal benefits to help veterans. Peoria County brought in $9 million last year to veterans to help them out. Tazewell County, since 2007, since the guy over there who's been in charge has been there, has brought in $0 to help veterans. And I think we can do something better. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Bear. So Mr. Bear's not going to speak this evening, but he just wants to distribute his remarks so that everybody will have those at their station. All right, next we have Katie Chapman from EDP Renewal.
Thank you, Jim.
Good evening. I'm Katie Chapman, and I'm an Associate Director with EDP Renewables. We developed, own, and operate the Rail Splitter Wind Farm, which was constructed in 2009. We're in the process of developing the second phase of the project. I'd like to speak tonight about the ordinance, which I believe is under consideration, and I'm grateful for your time. We thank the Tazewell County staff for drafting and revising the proposed ordinance amendment, and the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Land Use Committee for their time and effort to review and evaluate the draft. I'm grateful also to anyone who has reached out to myself or my colleagues. Thank you for educating us on your perspective and your community. Our door is open to you, even if we ultimately agree to disagree. We support this ordinance. Although it sets a very high bar, we believe it is workable. We provided written comments tonight with a few suggestions, which I would be happy to discuss further if it would be helpful. We respectfully suggest the removal of references to landowners in section 153.10, the decommissioning plan. The current language states that after decommissioning funds have been used, the owner of record is responsible for removal of project components. The language may act as a disincentive for landowners to sign land with us, and without land, we cannot build projects. Furthermore, this goes well beyond the agricultural mitigation agreement requirements, which were designed to ensure that adequate funding was available should the project owner fail to remove project components at the end of a project's useful life. And that ultimately is where responsibility for decommissioning lies. It's with the project. I will outline the decommissioning study process here in the hope that it is helpful. As required by state law in this ordinance, decommissioning costs will be estimated by a qualified third party. Their job is to take into account variables such as specific project design, scrap metal costs, transportation costs, that sort of thing. So it is a snapshot of real time for that project, costs to remove all of it. Once decommissioning costs are estimated, we place financial assurance for those costs in the form of bond or letter of credit with a bank. The bank needs to be accredited, it needs to be large, to ensure that those funds will be available should they be needed. Those funds are a fail-safe in case for some unforeseen reason we are unable to remove the project ourselves. We also perform additional studies to reevaluate costs every 5 years and adjust the financial assurance appropriately. So, for example, inflation changes would be taken into account at that time. The ordinance amendment suggests economics be reevaluated every 4 years. This change goes beyond what is currently required, but we believe it's feasible. Rail Splitter has been a good community partner in southern Tazewell County for nearly 15 years. It currently employs 9 local citizens in full-time positions and previously provided more than 70 jobs during construction. It has contributed more than $6 million in tax revenue to Tazewell County, approximately $3 million of which have gone to schools. It provides landowners a weather-resistant cash crop they can rely on, with over $12 million paid directly to landowners to date. We estimate that Rail Splitter 2 will bring more than $31 million to Tazewell County through property taxes over the project lifetime. This revenue includes an estimated $22 million to local schools. Regulatory certainty is important in our ability to build successful projects. We appreciate the effort that has gone into creating a fair and workable ordinance for Tazewell County, and we look forward to a resolution that will allow our partnership with the community to continue for years to come. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So now we're going to get into the solar farms in Groveland. And I asked you that if something that's already been shared, if you can just maybe, instead of reiterate, say I agree with what was said before, rather than maybe going through your whole comments. I'd like to start with William Shea. Sworn at all the time, so no, you're good. If you just state your name and where you live.
Yeah, thank you, members of the county board. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is William Shea. I'm an attorney in Peoria with the firm Westerfeld Johnson, Nicole and Keller, 411 Hamilton Boulevard in Peoria. And I'm here representing the Hoffmans who live on Isley Road, along with several other landowners who you'll hear from tonight, who oppose the issuance of special use permits for the 2 solar projects. I did send a letter, and I apologize for doing it as late as I did. Emailed it, I believe, to you all earlier today. I hope you got it. And I won't read it, but just maybe comment on some of the highlights. And of course, as you know, the county ordinance had to be reviewed and modified in light of state statute passed last January, Public Act 102-1123, and that says, among other things, that the standards that the county applies to projects like this cannot be more restrictive than the standards that are expressed in that statute. But I maintain that counties still retain their traditional role in protecting the public health, welfare, and other interests that they have for many, many decades. Nothing in the statute preempts or modifies in any way the so-called LaSalle Sinclair standards that were set forth by the Illinois Supreme Court back in 1957 and 1960. Those are equally applicable today as they were then. And you have another letter from another law firm, I believe, that so states, along with the one I sent you. So I don't think there's any question about that. So the point of that is that the factors, many of the factors that have been applied, that you've applied to date in your ordinance are still applicable and not prohibited by the state statute. And the findings of the Land Use Committee, I believe, are all consistent with that state statute and are permitted. And I think they're fully supported by the record in this case, including the voluminous testimony that some of you heard before the two ZBA hearings held earlier this year. So I just want to reiterate that the statute, the state statute under existing case law and statutory interpretation in Illinois does not, by its terms, preempt these factors that your ordinance currently provides and that the Land Use Committee relied upon in this case. And so I respectfully ask that you, the county board members, affirm and adopt the recommendation of the ZBA and the Land Use Committee and deny the applications for the special use permits. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Matt Hoffman. Is this the email that you sent out this afternoon?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman? Okay. Okay.
And I wanted to point out a couple of things on the buildings. All right, Matt Hoffman, I live at 20419 Icy Road in East Peoria. Been in the area for 30 plus years. Anyway, as you said, I sent an email earlier today that all non-participating neighbors who own property on the south and north do not approve of this project. This includes about 10 homeowners and one church that touch this property. Attached in my email and attached here is a letter from Ty Livingston and the city of East Peoria that do not want this project because they want to use this area for growth because they are landlocked to the north, to the west, and to the east of East Peoria. As Mr. Shea said, and there's a copy up here, that there is 2 attorneys that say that you can still use the LaSalle Sinclair law and the mile-and-a-half municipal law that have been in existence before solar panels and wind panels have been built in this area. So those laws take precedence on these projects and whether they should be allowed or not allowed. Under miscellaneous comments or issues, this project is about 70 acres, which is 4 times the size as the ones that are on Springfield Road and Route 9, which are about 18 acres. So it's 4 times the size. These projects are too close to residential property. We will be looking right at them when we pull in and out of our driveway from our front porches, and you know, maybe the guy in the north, his back deck is within 50 feet of the property line. So it's he is actually a lot closer than we are. These projects will devalue our residential property value because there will be less people interested in buying our houses when they have to look at solar panels that are all throughout the 70 acres or whatever. Glare issues, noise issues, transformer issues. Number 4, if this project is not denied, then what is stopping 3 or 4 more solar farms from being built at the intersection of Moore Road and Springfield Road? There's a map that we'll discuss in a second. This project is also in the Morton School District, in that area on Springfield Road. This area is perfect for residential and business growth between East Peoria, Morton, and Groveland area. Number 7, other areas of the county or the state are available for these type of projects that are not close to residential area. Number 8, this LLC company that is from Delaware, that is owned and operated out of California, has only been in business for less than a year. They plan on selling the rights to the project or the management of the project to others. Legal reasons to deny the project is the city of East Peoria's request to deny it, and the LaSalle Sinclair issues that do harm to the neighbor's property by lower property values, glare issues, noise issues, for us. In conclusion, the county needs to keep the LaSalle Sinclair requirements and the 1.5 mile municipal requirements on solar and wind projects. Hopefully agree to that. The county has been using question number 5 on the special use permit, questions A through N, which are similar to evaluating the LaSalle Sinclair requirements. They're similar questions and concerns. Page number 3 shows a little map of this area. The purple line is going to the substation, catty corner from the UAW hall. That's the reason they're going to connect up. And all this land here is perfect for East Peoria growth. North, east, and west of East Peoria is not good for growth. The Illinois River stops them. Page number 4 of the attachment shows the perimeter of East Peoria in the red line, and there's a measuring thing of 2,600 feet, which is a half mile. And actually the city of Morton, where the curve is within 1.1 miles of this.
So we're about at the 5-minute mark.
Okay. And this basically the attachments are with you.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you
time.
so much, yes. Right, Jane Hoffman.
I'm Jane Hoffman. I live at 20419 Isley Road, East Peoria. My home is right across from the proposed ASTA site. Just a quick comment, I guess. A large-scale commercial solar farm should never be allowed to be built in a residential neighborhood. We have rights to enjoy our homes where we live and not have our home values, views, peace, serenity, and community development impeded. We're not talking about a few panels on someone's home or in a commercial building. We're talking many, many panels on many, many acres of land. In this case, 60 to 70 plus acres of land. And with so much land, or agricultural land in Illinois and Tazewell County, there is so much agricultural land that does not encompass neighborhoods, residential homes, and churches. And some may wonder why Cultivate Power is so interested in this particular plot of land. And the representative was asked this question at the land use meeting, and his response was basically that since there's a power substation in close proximity, this makes it convenient for the solar company, as they would not have to have one built. It would save them time and money. To me, that indicates that they're not interested in how this project will impact our community or the neighbor or my neighborhood, as long as it is convenient for them. Solar panels are not hail-proof, tornado-proof, or fire-proof. I work in commercial insurance. We have an inland marine division. We had some recent claims in April for both hail and tornado damage to solar panels. In Olympia, Illinois, there were solar panels on the roof of a high school that caught fire. This proposed land is in an area subject to high winds, tornadoes, and hail. There's the potential the panels may not only be damaged, but become projectiles into our homes. Fire risk is also a major concern. In my presentation at the ZBA, I discussed a report by Firetrace International that said that the solar industry is potentially underestimating the risk of fire at solar farms. And due to that, they may be underreported. In a study done, half of 430 cases of fire or heat damage, the PV system was considered the cause or probable cause. Another study found that in more than a quarter of fires involving the solar power systems, they're caused by PVs, and all were serious fires, meaning difficult to extinguish and spread beyond the area of origin. And the only fire mitigation that I heard talked about by the representative of the solar company was making sure that the local fire department is trained on how to fight a fire. He also said that he would not want the firefighters to enter the solar farm to fight a fire for fear of damaging the panels. That would be of great concern if the fire were to spread quickly and out of control, as the firefighters may not be able to stop it from moving to our homes or the church or neighboring areas. We have no fire hydrants in our neighborhood. I feel like we can be the ones to set the precedent, and we must stand up and make our voices heard and say, no, this is not right. We must protect people living in their homes and the growth and development of communities. A large-scale solar farm is not the place to put in a residential neighborhood. Thank you for your time and consideration to not allowing these projects to move forward.
All right, thank you. Jane Chapman.
It wasn't my joints. They've been recently replaced, so I'm all good. Jane Chapman, resident of Gleason Acres, 20401 Isley Road. Some of you look very familiar. I've seen you at 2 ZBA meetings and 1 land use committee meeting, and I would refer the board to a presentation that I gave for the ZBA meeting in May. In that meeting, or in that presentation that I gave, I looked and analyzed and reported on the references that the Solar Energy Industry Association uses to support their claim that property values are not affected by the nearness to photovoltaic systems. The 2 main studies that they use are written by Richard Kirkland and the other by McGarr and Limes for Cone Resnick. And in that presentation, I had pictures, overhead aerial pictures of each photovoltaic site and the test houses that they analyzed. Test houses are houses that are adjacent to or abutting the photovoltaic system. No, not facing the photovoltaic system. Test houses then, once they're sold, are compared to this similar house size, structure, you know, as close a comparison that they could make, and with their sale prices. So the 5 photovoltaic systems in the McGarr and Limes Cone Resnick study, they would have houses, maybe 1 or 2 houses that were adjacent and or abutting. There was big setback from the photovoltaic systems, and none of them were facing the photovoltaic systems. The same is true of Richard Kirkland's impact study. So the appraisers can't answer the question that I was searching for. It was, how would a 10 megawatt photovoltaic system situated across the street from a facing subdivision affect property values of said subdivision? So the Solar Energy Industry Association references do not address that and can't answer that. So then I went and looked at the university articles and journals that I found through Google search, and decided that I would contact the corresponding and primary investigators of those studies. I said to ask them, or I told them the situation of how the photovoltaic systems would be situated, a pasta encampment across the street of our facing subdivision, and asked them if their data would support or refute that. And they said that even though the studies suggest that there would be a decrease in property value, they can't comment on the specific situation because their data will suggest distance, but not whether or not the subdivisions or houses are facing the photovoltaic systems. So the appraisers can't answer that question. Then they directed me to, they suggested I look at local appraisers or assessors. I'm still waiting to hear from our local assessor, and I contacted them in March. So, there's no expert out there that can actually say that residential property values will not be affected. And so, I think that it says that the lawmakers, those that wrote the law that brought us to where we are today, is basing their information on references that don't match this situation. They're basing their laws, developing solar systems, solar photovoltaic systems on agricultural land, surrounded by agricultural land, and that's one thing that every impact study had in common. The 60 some whatever acres across the street from a platted subdivision is not agricultural land surrounded by agricultural land. I thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Max Chapman.
I'm Max Chapman, and I live at the same place as my wife, which is 20401 Isley Road, and our house is directly across the street from the Hosta proposed solar farm, and so we have been very much involved in the last 4 meetings now, opposing these projects. What I want to say is that I think the legislators who passed House Bill 4412, I think it was, had some vision of what these solar installations would look like. And I think that vision would be something like this, that it would be a strip of agricultural land that maybe previously had corn or soybeans on it, and there would be an array of panels put on that land. And the question is, well, what about the surrounding land? It would probably look unmodified, and if it was agricultural land, it would still have corn, beans, and so on. If that vision is at all correct, then it doesn't apply to our situation. Cultivate Power has chosen to put 2 solar farms in the midst of 3 residential areas. It is not typical farm ground that is going to surround these solar installations. It is residential area. And those 3 residential areas include East Peoria, Roadland, and Isley Road. Well, when these 3 residential areas, particularly East Peoria, when they received this information, how did they respond? Well, that's already been covered. I will only reiterate the final conclusions from Ty Livingston's letter, he is the director of planning and development for the city of East Peoria. And he said, the projects represent potential challenges to growth of East Peoria along the Springfield Road corridor. And his final remark was, the petitioner should be encouraged to consider other locations. How did the people along Isley Road respond to this possibility of having solar farms in their front yard? Well, I think they responded in 2 ways. One was they were very much opposed to the industrialization of their landscape. it is going to change if these solar fields go in from a natural agricultural landscape to an industrial landscape, where you have acres and acres of panels. And the second way that people along Isley Road responded was a fear that they would have a loss of property value. Now, property values are a very complex issue, and you have to be very careful when you read the literature on these that you're comparing apples with apples. But I just would have two questions regarding property values, and that is, number one, solar developers generally will tell you that property values are not going to decrease significantly, but when push comes to shove, solar developers will enter into neighborhood agreements where large amounts of money are paid to residents impacted by the solar installation. So, in one sense, the solar developers are speaking out of two sides of their mouth. The second question I have is, the state of Illinois has set aside $200 million to help offset the loss in property values to small businesses and to residents that are impacted by solar installations. Now, why would the state set aside $200 million if property values are not going down? Okay, one final thing is my concerns about Cultivate Power. This is a very young company, approximately a year old now. The company has no track record of a successful completion of a single solar installation. There is no track record of a successful solar installation. There is no resume containing recommendations from previous clients. And so Cultivate Power has had difficulty meeting the requirements of this petition in terms of various forms and so on.
Mr. Chairman,
So
I'm getting real close to the 5 minutes. So
okay,
wrap it up,
I'm
please.
right to my conclusion here. My conclusion is, in line with Ty Livingston from East Peoria, that Cultivate Power should look elsewhere. And I ask, again, as I did at the Land Use Committee, I ask that Cultivate Power and Mr. Kerfield in particular permanently withdraw your petition for this special land use that you've applied for.
All right, thank you. Carol Vance?
My name is Carol Vance. I live at 20185 Isley Road, East Peoria. I'm an adjacent property owner to the land in question this evening for the solar panel projects. As Mr. Shea has already confirmed for us tonight, the LaSalle-Sinclair factor should still apply because Governor Pritzker's recent statute does not override case law, and there have been other counties in the state of Illinois recently to have adopted the LaSalle-Sinclair factors in their decision-making progress. I would like to point out match up how the LaSalle-Sinclair factors line up with what is called the facts, finding of facts on our own application, items 5A through I, and share with you what I believe are the correct answers. LaSalle Factor 1 relates to the degree to which existing and proposed zoning districts are compatible with existing land uses in the immediate area. And this lines up with Tazewell County ZBA's own question 5H on the application. Solar panel farms are not consistent with existing land uses of any nearby land or the land in question tonight. The land in question and nearby land is primarily used for agricultural farming practices, residential housing, and a church. LaSalle factor number 2 discusses the extent to which property values are diminished by the restrictions of the ordinance. This is consistent with Tazewell County ZBA's question 5D. In Cultivate Power's own exhibit, and as Jane Chapman already referenced this evening, there are no residential properties within 50 to 150 feet and facing solar panel farms, which will be the case for the residents on Isley and Springfield roads if these applications are approved tonight. We have no proof that our property values will not decline. LaSalle factor number 3 discusses the extent to which the ordinance promotes the health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the public. And this is consistent with Tazewell County ZBA's questions 5B and C on their application. Approving these applications will not promote health, safety, and general welfare. Rather, they will put people at risk. We have many concerns related to health and safety effects from wind and fire risks and chemical runoff in the drinking water. I believe a solar panel farm across from our houses will also adversely affect our general welfare. First, the fact that my neighbors and I have spent hours researching and presenting about this issue show how strongly opposed we are to the reality of having this so close to our homes. I also know how I feel when I drive past the solar farms on Springfield Road and Route 9 on my way to work every day. I find them upsetting to look at and feel they are a form of visual pollution, which is all too rapidly cluttering our county. At the meeting on May 4th, one ZBA member used the word hideous to describe the appearance of an aspect of the solar panel farm on Route 9. If they're hideous for passersby to look at, you can be sure they will be discouraging for residents to live by. LaSalle factor number 5 deals with the issue of whether there are certain features of the property which favor the type and intensity of uses permitted in either the current or the proposed zoning district. This is consistent with Tazewell County ZBA's questions 5E, F, and I. Since we know the land has drainage issues already, and there was no wetland delineation or subsurface drain tile survey on file at time of application, and there has been no corrected site plan on file taking the ingress and egress away from a waterway, I don't believe that the land is suitable for use in question tonight. Also, going back to LaSalle factor number 1, which corresponds to Tazewell County ZBA question 5H, this is not consistent with the use of the land, which is largely farming and residential. LaSalle factor number 6, the length of time the property has been vacant as zoned, considered in the context of land development in the vicinity of the subject property. The land in question tonight has never been vacant nor lain fallow. Sinclair factor number 8, the care with which the community has planned its land use development. From a letter that we've addressed already tonight from Ty Livingston, we know where East Peoria stands on this. It will impede their growth. And whether their growth would have ever occurred on the land in question tonight, we don't know, but I imagine they realize or expect that the surrounding land would be less desirable if it were in close proximity to commercial solar panel farms. If the ZBA saw fit to add questions reflecting LaSalle Sinclair factors in their own application, I believe they thought they were worth considering. I urge the board to consider how approving these 2 commercial solar panel applications would be in keeping with these LaSalle Sinclair factors, which still apply to situations like ours. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Kathy Gennard. Did I pronounce it right? Gennard, okay.
Good evening, my name is Kathy Gennard. I live at 20439 Isley Road, and I want to say I agree with what my neighbors have spoke about. So far, we live directly south of the Hosta and Catmint Farms proposals. Not only the aesthetics, the loss of my property value, I have big concerns about safety at my house. We had damage at my house from the recent storms. And that was not even a tornado, that was more of a wind issue. There are no windbreaks coming from the north, the northeast, the east to my house. In November of 2013, I stood on my front porch and I watched the tornado that went down Muller Road, crossed Pinecrest Drive, and ultimately ended in Washington and did damage. My concern is if that would happen and that tornado came the other way, that those solar panels could become projectiles and they would go directly into my house. And I'm also concerned with the aspect of fire and the additional utility poles that have been proposed to connect to the existing lines directly in front of my house. If there is a fire or there's electricity or there's wind or anything like that, that is a concern to me. More than the property values, more than the aesthetics, for me it is a safety issue. And again, I drive by those same solar farms on Route 9 and Springfield Road every day. There are 6 poles connecting those farms to the existing lines, and those are smaller than the proposed farms that are across from us. So how many poles is that going to be connecting to the existing lines? So thank you for listening, and I'm sure that you will give the utmost thought and consideration into this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dewey Clerfeld?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, County Board, for taking the time to hear these 2 applications. Thank you to everyone in the community that has voiced their opinions on the projects. I am a Senior Director at Cultivate Power. I lead the West Market, California, Arizona, and other states. I'm here on behalf of these 2 projects because we have a lot of activity and they needed some coverage. I personally have developed over 500 megawatts of projects representing between 25 and 35, I'd have to run the math, that are built in the Midwest, the Southeast, and the West. So while our company is new, I assure you, I am not the most senior person in our company. Combined, the 15 people that work at Cultivate Power have gigawatts, hundreds of thousands of acres of solar deployed throughout the United States and the majority of the states in this country. So our experience, while our company is new, our market thesis and our ability is proven, and I just wanted to lay that out there. There have been a lot of points laid out on various issues. I just want to hit on some key ones. First off, and I only want to hit on the key ones because I do believe that generally speaking, the Land Use Committee and the ZBA did hear the record, and while I disagree with some of the findings of fact, I do think that the testimony from all parties was heard and accurately represents the record. So with regards to citing, the opposers that just spoke laid out some of the important factors that are critical when we decide to cite projects, but they omitted a couple. So they are correct. One of the first ones we look at is having a substation nearby that has capacity. In this case, we are interconnecting to the substation directly to the north, and they are correct that without having a substation that has capacity, we would have to spend $5 to $7 additional million to have a project done, in which case it would not be economic. This is fairly standard for both wind, solar, of any size and scope. The next thing we look at is having a willing landowner who's willing to either sell us land or lease us land over a long period of time for the use. We contact hundreds of thousands of landowners across many, many states, and we can only work and cite projects where we have a landowner that's willing to enter into a long-term agreement with us. So while there might be a preferred location that's elsewhere, I can only go where there is a willing landowner. We next look at things like environmental characteristics to make sure that there are no threatened and endangered species, wetland issues. References have been made to a number of reports that have since been completed but haven't been submitted to the committee because it would be an amendment to the application, and I didn't want to complicate the record. So that's citing. These projects represent a $7 million investment each into the community. They would be pollinator-friendly plants. While there have been numerous references to projects that are currently under construction, I can't speak to whether those will be pollinator-friendly, but per the Tazewell County ordinance, these projects would be pollinator-friendly, meaning we would plant native forbs and grasses underneath and surrounding the panels that would enable insects and critters to come and thrive under the area covered under the panels. Let's see. These projects would also inject a considerable amount of additional property tax. While it's not the numbers that EDP quoted for their large-scale wind farms, it is substantial. The current property tax based on 2021 parcel cards publicly available is around $860 per parcel. These two projects would jump that up to about $30,000 in year one. So it's a considerable difference. Furthermore, over the course of the 30 to 35 year life of the farms, they would total over $600,000 in property taxes each. It's important to note that these two projects don't exist in a vacuum. They exist not only because of the state law that was recently passed, but also because of the community solar program that has been passed by the state of Illinois and that is active in Ameren and Commonwealth territory. Community solar generally allows neighboring and nearby landowners to subscribe to the electricity of participating projects in return for a discount of 10 to 20% on their electricity bill. We have heard compelling to somewhat compelling testimony from a variety of people over the past 2 months on the record, but what we haven't heard is from the potential subscribers to these two projects, who are numerous. It would be over 1,000 people per project, or 1,000 residences, depending on their electricity use. It would have a tangible, meaningful savings in the event that these projects came forward. These projects are, in my opinion, fully compliant with LaSalle factors. I do disagree with the findings of the Land Use Committee and the ZBA on several of the factors that were found to be negative determinants for the project's acceptance. However, we believe that those LaSalle factors do not apply here, which our legal counsel will opine on in a minute. These projects will comply with all federal and state law, as well as the own county's ordinance and building and electrical standards. The last thing that I want to kind of throw out there, the majority of it's worth noting considerably, we've heard a lot about landowners that live directly across from the Hosta project. We have not heard from any landowners that live directly across the Catman project, although I have attempted to contact them periodically and regularly throughout the past few months. These main neighbors, may be happy to learn that we are prepared and will commit to withdrawing the Hosta application if the Catman application is approved. With that, I am open for questions and comments if the county board has any at any time, but I'd love to hand it off to my lawyer if the chairman would permit.
We actually don't take questions, but do you want your attorney to go next?
That would be wonderful.
Okay,
Thank
you. Ben Jacoby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, county board members. My name is Ben Jacoby. My current address is in Chicago, but I actually grew up in Mahomet, which is not too far from here. Went to high school there, went to college at the U of I, went to law school at Iowa. And then I went to work at OKGC, Ohio and Kossoff, and I've stood in this room before representing the county and advised the county on liability claims. So I'm happy to be here in this capacity today for the solar projects. And I am the lawyer for the solar projects, Hosta and Catman. And I've been asked to provide some legal context for the projects. I authored a letter dated May 25. I circulated it on Friday via email. Hopefully you saw it. And so I'm just going to hit a few of the highlights from that letter, and I won't spend too long up here. The first is, I know everybody's aware of the state siting legislation, 55 ILCS 5/5/12020G. And that siting legislation requires that the county approve projects that meet the regulations set forth in that ordinance. And the projects here do meet those regulations. They meet the regulations set forth in the siting legislation. And so under the siting legislation, the counties shall approve those projects, and that shall approve is in subsection G. And I know that, members of the land use committee had agreed at their committee meeting. We've heard about the LaSalle factors. Mr. Shea earlier spoke on the LaSalle factors, and some other members of the public spoke on LaSalle factors. Those were from case law, those were discretionary factors, and the citing legislation has removed that discretion from the counties. It preempts it. Whether you agree or not, the citing legislation has preempted that discretion from the counties. And that's where we find ourselves today. And that's what Governor Pritzker did. And you can find that in 5-12-20G, where it says you shall approve if they meet the regulations. Statutes do override case law. That's what they do. When courts do something that the General Assembly doesn't like, the General Assembly passes a statute. That's the check and balance. So the latest statute that we have, 12020, is the citing legislation, and that preempts the case law that existed for many decades before. Now, because the solar projects comply with that statute, again, the county shall approve. But I think it's really important to highlight something, and that is that Hospice Solar and Cat Mint Solar both applied and both made sure that their applications conform to your prior ordinance. They wanted to make sure that they presented themselves as good neighbors, as residents of the community, and so they made great effort to take your former regulations that are now outdated because of the citing legislation, so it's a mouthful. But they went back to your former ordinance and they wanted to make sure that they met those standards that the community found important at that time. And they did. They met all of the objective standards, and they also met the subjective discretionary LaSalle factors too. And Dewey spoke to that a second ago, and I know you heard a lot of evidence on it, and we'll have some more comment tonight on that. But that includes the setbacks from residential properties, and that includes all of the other objective and subjective factors in there. So they really took care to do that. So we find ourselves here then having gone through the process, having gone through the thorough process, received the evidence. The state has passed a statute that the county now must adhere to, but the companies still are working with the county as best they can. And as you heard from Dewey a moment ago, they're even willing to commit to withdraw the one application hostage in the event that Cat Mint is approved. So one more concession for the county. With that, I think I've covered the legal basis, and that's all I'm allowed to do as the lawyer. So I will turn it over to our colleague, Aaron Bowen, who will speak on real estate value, because I know that's a concern to the county. And Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron Bolton.
Good evening, my name is Erin Bowen. I am a commercial real estate appraiser and a senior manager at Resnick. I am an MAI, a designated member of the Appraisal Institute, the highest designation of my field. I am brought aware that you guys have had multiple concerns about property values. I am one of the co-authors of the Property Value Impact Study Report that was referenced earlier. I am co-authors with Andrew Lyons and Patricia McGarr, also MAIs. And together with Andrew and Pat, over the last 7 years at Resnick, we have studied the potential impact of solar facilities on adjacent property values. We have approached this issue threefold. The first of which is we have studied and reviewed academic studies. These studies have performed regression analyses which analyze hundreds of thousands of transactions of real estate properties adjacent solar facilities. And these studies have found that there has been no measurable and consistent impact for properties adjacent solar facilities. The second of which has been to interview and survey county and township assessors across the United States. We have surveyed over 70 assessors, 5 of which in the state of Illinois, including in the counties of LaSalle, Winnebago, Champaign, Stevenson, and Fayette County. We have asked these assessors multiple questions to ascertain whether there's an impact of the solar facilities in their jurisdictions on their residing residential properties. We have asked whether they have identified or noticed any trends of transactions of single-family residential, and they have not noticed any trends. We have asked these assessors if they themselves have adjusted the way that they assess properties adjacent solar facilities, and they have not adjusted their assessments of properties adjacent solar facilities. And we've also asked if property residents have asked for and been granted a reduction in assessed values, and they have not. Finally, we at Cone Resnick have performed our own paired sales analyses. We have studied over 35 existing solar facilities across the country in a variety of sizes and settings, ranging from 1 megawatt to over 240 megawatts in both rural and suburban environments and a variety of property types. The steps that we do are to identify all transactions of adjacent properties around the existing solar facility, and then compare those properties to similar but locationally removed from the solar facility. And we look at size, square footage, year build, quality and condition. And then we analyze the overall sale price and have found that there's been no impacts to the properties and solar adjacent facility in overall sale price, price per square foot, days on market or marketability, the rate of appreciation, and has not impacted new development. I also want to bring up that the test sales that we have studied occur in a variety of settings, from properties that are within 100 to 150 feet of the solar farm, properties that do indeed face the solar farm from their front yard, and are surrounded by 3 or even 4 sides of solar panels. And we have seen consistently no impact on property values. One of the studies in the report that was referenced earlier, Call Farms 3 Solar on page 69 and 70, includes one of those properties that faces the solar, and there was no impact. In fact, it was 0.31% difference. We have examples of much larger facilities that were not included in the report. That report particularly only included 10 of the 35 studies that we've conducted. We don't include all of our studies because the report would be over 500 pages long. Our findings are consistent and corroborated by those academic professionals, market participants, and others in the market. Thank you for your time. My name is Erin Bowden.
All right, thank you, Erin. And then finally, Leah Grossman. Okay. All right, so that ends any other communications from members of the public or county employees. There were no other forms submitted. Communications from elected or appointed county officials. Russ?
Just a brief statement. Been on the board for a long, long time, and this is the first time we ever had a letter presented to the board that criticizes the professional treatment. And I just want to say one thing that is, I'll go to my grave with, and that is every single person in the land use room that night was given an opportunity to address the committee. And every single person, with no exception. And I didn't have a stopwatch. They could talk as long as they wanted. In retrospect, probably was a little too gracious, but that's what I did. What you have a letter on is somebody who later, when the board was deliberating, wanted to, as a non-board member, intervene in that discussion. That is not our policy in Tazewell County, nor has it ever been. Thank you.
Like any other comments from elected or appointed county officials? All right, we're moving on. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 26th meeting? Motion by Graff, second by Depper. Any changes, deletions, corrections? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? I'm going to go to the consent agenda. and then, we're going to, actually, why don't I get, motion to go into executive session citing, pending litigation. Motion by Crawford, second by Schneider. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye. Just point of order.
Yes.
You didn't mean pending litigation, did you?
Uh,
Probable or imminent litigation?
yes, that's what I meant to say. Thank you, Bill. So, yes.
I think the record and minutes should also reflect, if it's probable litigation, just generally the reason, and I think in particular cases that the county has received a communication that does in fact suggest that potential litigation, could be on the way.
That is correct, yes. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? I'll have to ask, members of the public to step out. Hopefully we won't be too long.